What is up, you guys? I'm JustGreene, and today I have the all-new 2022 Hyundai Tucson, and as you can see, it has been totally redesigned for 2022, and it has also been extended significantly longer than the previous generation in terms of length. And what I want to answer with this video is the all-new 2022 Hyundai Tucson worth it over its class offerings? That's what we'll find out. So if you guys have been following Hyundai for a while, it's no secret that they've been making huge bursts in the auto industry, and the 2022 Tucson is no exception, with an all-new front fascia, body style, and an extended wheelbase for 2022. I think it's safe to say that this is certainly a departure from the last generation, which had a more conservative, friendly look. As you can see, my tester is in this Fanta black paint, which is probably not the best color if you want to show off the aggressive styling of this vehicle. The black kind of hides those small details away, but I still think it makes a very good first impression. Now what I first want to do is of course start off with the trim levels for this vehicle. So the 2022 Hyundai Tucson starts as low as $25,800 for the very base model, and it can go as high as $35,300 for the top of the line limited trim level. And the thing about Hyundai is that they've always been about value for the dollar. So is that what you get with the 2022 Tucson? Well, let's first start off with the exterior design of this vehicle. So starting off on the hood, you can see we have 4 different body lines going across, which kind of add to the angular look this vehicle has. And then coming down to the front fascia, wow, I mean, look at this thing. There is just so much going on here. Now this is what Hyundai is calling the parametric design language. We've also seen this on other vehicles like the 2021 Elantra and the all-new Santa Cruz, which I will be getting my hands on soon. So as you can see, our front grille is finished in black. I think it looks really sharp with the Hyundai badge, nicely integrated. Now coming over to our headlights, these are going to be fully LED on every trim level, which is really nice. That's still not something you see with some of the competition, and if you haven't noticed already, this is blended very nicely with the front grille, so much to the point where when you switch the car off, you would think that this is just an extension of the grille. So just small details like that really give this vehicle a unique look that stands out from the rest of the crowd. Now where most of the biz is happening is down here. These are our actual LED headlights which illuminate the road ahead, and again LED is standard across all the trim levels. You can see we have a functional air vent off to the side, and I like how the body lines around this headlight are shaped, which definitely add to the angular look down here. Then coming down, we have this chrome accent going across the front end, and finally below that, we have more functional airflow for our radiator along with this matte black bumper down here. Now let's bring our attention to the side profile here, and as you can see, our parametric design language continues with some of the aggressive body lines going across. The black paint kind of makes the small details less noticeable than something like white or silver, but they're still very apparent. And now as we walk towards the vehicle, on top we have our blacked out roof rails. Below that, we have this chrome accent with some small lines towards the back. I personally think it should have been blacked out, but as you can see, it's part of our rear window trim, and it does flow nicely into the other chrome accents. Moving down to our mirrors, they're going to be body colored if you go for the SC or SEL trim levels, and then the end line and above will have blacked out mirrors which are heated on every Tucson but the base model, and you can see that we have an LED turn signal which is standard on every model. Moving down, you can clearly see the aggressive body lines I was talking about earlier. So we have 2 going across and then 1 coming from the bottom, and this all flows really nicely into the rear tail. Here we have this matte black trim that goes all around the vehicle, which nicely outfits our stylish looking wheels, which speaking of, we're riding on 19-inch alloys. This comes with the convenience package and is standard on the higher trim levels, and I believe the very base model has a smaller 18-inch wheel. I really like some of the dark accents on the wheel spokes. Definitely matches nicely with our black exterior. I think Hyundai makes some really interesting looking wheels. And then as for the tires, we have these Michelin 255/55 series all season tires. Now coming back here to our gas cap, it's going to be a push button style, but it only works when you've already unlocked the vehicle. And as far as our fuel capacity, this vehicle can handle up to 14.3 gallons of fuel. As for the type of fuel, unfortunately I couldn't find a spec for that on Hyundai's website, but you should probably be fine with putting in regular 87 octane, so I wouldn't worry too much on that. Now coming to the rear of the all-new Tucson, the first thing you might notice is we have no exposed rear wiper, which kind of cleans up the look back here, and it also makes up for a slightly better visibility through this rear window. And if we walk up close, you can see that it's tucked in right up here. Then moving down, you might not have already noticed, but this Hyundai emblem is actually inside of this rear window instead of on top, which is kind of interesting. something you don't see very often. Usually you would expect to see the badge on the actual tailgate, but here Hyundai has took a little bit of a different approach. Then coming down, you can see we have this same sort of vibe going on with the redesigned Elantra, with this taillight going across the entire tailgate. The actual taillights themselves have like this fang design. They are going to be fully LED on every trim but the base model. Then coming down, of course, we have our Tucson badge. Then you can see in the center here we have our backup camera, which is nicely hidden under this tailgate. Over here to the right, we have our H-Track badge, which is Hyundai's own branding for the all-wheel drive system. Keep in mind, this is optional, not standard for every Tucson, so of course you will have to pay extra for that. Then coming down, we have this matte black bumper with a silver accent below that, and again, more triangles with this bottom trim here, again adding to that parametric look. And then way down here, this is not only a reflector, but this is actually our turn signal. Yes, for some reason Hyundai decided to put it all the way down here. From a safety standpoint, this could be a little bit of an issue, so I'm personally not a fan of that. Let me know what you guys think about this. Now to open our trunk, we can obviously just hold the button on our key fob or locate the button under the tailgate of the vehicle, but as we do that, you can see that we do have a power lifting tailgate, which is standard on every Tucson but the very base model, and it is optional on the SEL trim level with the convenience package. Now to fold down our seats, you just locate the lever on each side of the vehicle, and then you just pull them, and then the seats should fold down. As you can see, one of them is kind of stuck because I have the driver's seat pulled back quite a bit. But now as far as the cargo space back here, it has been significantly improved over the previous generation Tucson thanks to the massive increase in overall length of this vehicle. So it's rated to have 38.7 cubic feet behind the second row, and if we fold that down, that expands to a maximum of 80.3 cubic feet of space. And as far as where this sits in the segment, this is one of the highest you'll find. I believe it's on par with the Honda CR-V. And as far as its sister vehicle, the 2022 Kia Sportage, this Tucson completely blows it out in that aspect. Now yes, Kia did update the Sportage as a 2023 model for this year, and if we're comparing this Tucson to that model, this vehicle isn't too far ahead, but if you are cross-shopping it with that vehicle and cargo space is important to you, the Tucson still remains on top, so keep that in mind. Now as you can see, my tester has this privacy cargo cover. Then we've also got this 12-volt cigarette lighter, as well as a speaker back here. And if we lift this floor up, we do have a spare tire with some extra storage on each side for some small tools. Now let's take a look at our powertrain for this all-new Tucson. As you can see, we do have a prop rod. I'm not too keen on that, but that's okay because Hyundai has spent more money on the more important aspects of this vehicle. Now what we have under the hood is a 2.5 liter inline 4. It puts out 187 horsepower with 178 pound-feet of torque. That's a little bit less than the current Honda CR-V. That's significantly less than something like the Toyota RAV4 and the Nissan Rogue. And some competitors make just over 200 horsepower, including the sister vehicle. So this is definitely on the lower end of the segment as far as power goes. Now this engine is mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission, and as far as fuel economy, this powertrain is rated to get 26 in the city, 33 on the highway, and 29 combined if you use the front wheel drive setup. For all-wheel drive, that of course reduces those numbers a bit, so it's rated at 24 in the city, 29 on the highway, and 26 combined. Now if that's not enough fuel economy for you, Hyundai also offers the Tucson with a hybrid powertrain. It makes much higher numbers than this standard gas model, so if gas mileage is important to you, I think going with the hybrid model is a no-brainer. Now before we get inside the all-new Tucson, here's the key fob for the vehicle. So it's got smart entry access with a button for the trunk, and in terms of the feel of this, it's made of plastic. It's also a pretty large key fob, fits great in my hand, and of course we have our Hyundai logo on the back. Now to get inside, you could just walk up to the vehicle and then pull the door handle to unlock it. It has a sensor built in behind the door handle. And first, taking a look at this door panel, you can see that we have some nice design elements. Definitely makes this look modern and futuristic. We've got some hard touch plastic at the top. Below that, we have this piano black sill that goes across with some silver outlining. I think this is a nice touch that looks and feels pretty high class. Then this lower wall has this cloth feel, which is interesting. Considering we have a leather interior, I think this should have been leather as well to match that. Then the armrest is finished in leather. We have some piano black for the controls. And for the controls, we have one-touch auto up and down windows for the driver and passenger, as well as our control for the power adjusting mirrors. Then moving down, we have some storage space with cup holders, and as for our speaker grill, it doesn't really stand out. It just looks a little cheap. I think Hyundai should have made this silver or some other color to kind of spice up the look, but that's no big deal. Now as far as the speakers themselves, we're going to get the Bose 8-speaker premium sound system on this model with the premium package. Keep in mind, this is only available on the N line and up, otherwise you're going to get a 6-speaker sound system. Then coming over to our driver's seat, it's going to be an 8-way power adjusting seat with lumbar support. This is standard on every trim but the very base model. As for the seats themselves, they're finished in this black leather with some nice white stitching around the edges. And another thing you'll notice is that we have this silver trim near the headrest. I'm not sure if I like that or not, but it's pretty apparent upon first seeing this interior. Now we'll go ahead and take a step in here, and now closing the door. It's very solid. There's no audible rattles, so that's a pretty great first impression of quality. So starting up top, we have this frameless rear view mirror with some electronic controls at the bottom. This is also auto dimming. Then moving down to the dash, it's made of soft touch plastic. We do have one speaker in the middle as part of our Bose premium audio system. And now to start up the vehicle, just put your foot on the brake and find a push to start button right over here. And as you can see, we have this 10.25-inch digital gauge cluster, which is available on every Tucson but the very base model, and it is optional on the SEL with the convenience package. This is very similar to the Elantra that I tested a few weeks back, and I think it's really nice that Hyundai gives you this screen on some of the lower trim levels. Some competitors don't even offer that at this price. Now in terms of the functionality, the gauges themselves cannot be customized, but what we can customize is the information in the center. So we can view things such as our drive info, and we have 4 different drive modes for the Tucson, and this gauge cluster will do a neat little animation where you switch between those modes, and we've even got our own themes for each one of them. Now something very interesting is that if you go for the top of the line limited trim level, Hyundai also throws in a blind spot monitoring system which will basically take place in either of these gauges depending on which direction you're signaling to. So I think it's really cool that Hyundai offers that, and all in all, I think this digital gauge setup is very luxury car-like. It's not something you see very often in this class of vehicle. Now coming to the steering wheel, it's going to be made out of leather. I think it has a nice feel and grip to it. We've got some silver accents on the spokes here. And as far as the adjustment, this is going to be a manually adjustable wheel. Hyundai also gives you a heated steering wheel if you go for the limited trim level, but my tester does not include that. As you can see here, we have the same cloth that we found on the door panels on this upper dash here. Coming to our air vents, they again look pretty high class. The housing around it flows nicely into the upper dash portion of the vehicle. And then coming to the infotainment, we have this 8-inch screen standard on every Tucson. However, if you go for the top of the line limited, this becomes a 10.25-inch screen, which is one of the largest you'll find in the segment. This system does include wireless Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay. However, the limited trim level is only available as a wired connection. Now as far as the user interface, if you've been in a recent Hyundai product, this should be very familiar to you. So this is the Hyundai BlueLink system, which I find to be very easy to use and intuitive. It's also very responsive. Now one thing that's missing is a built-in map or navigation system, which is only available on the higher trim levels, but I imagine most people are just going to use their phones anyway, so that shouldn't really be an issue. Now as you can see, I have Apple CarPlay up and running. It's nice and responsive, although I kind of wish Hyundai made this fill up the entire screen, because as you can see, there's a little bit of a display gap around the edges here, so I'm not sure what that's about. Now this volume knob has this rough checker pattern texture to it. It feels very nice and high quality. I love the haptic clickiness that it has. It's really satisfying just scrubbing the wheel there. Now moving down to our climate control, it's mostly touch-based controls and they're very responsive to touch. I know sometimes these can be kind of a pain to interact with, especially on some cheaper vehicles, but I'm happy to report that's not the case here. I'm not having to double click anything. Then moving down, we have 2 USB ports as well as a cigarette lighter, and then below that we have some storage space for a cell phone with a wireless charger built in. This is part of the convenience package and is standard on every Tucson but the very base model. Now coming to the shifter, as you can see, it's a traditional stick shifter. It's wrapped in leather. However, if you go for the top of the line limited, this becomes an electronic shifter. Now if I throw this into reverse, as you can see, we have a standard backup camera with active trajectory. Resolution looks nice and crisp. Hyundai also throws in a 360 surround view camera with the limited, which is obviously missing here. Now coming back to the shifter, we have some controls for our all-wheel drive system, as well as our electronic parking brake and drive mode selector. Then moving over here, we have two cup holders, some piano black around this area. Back here we have our heated and ventilated seat controls for the driver and passenger. Ventilated seats are also part of the convenience package. Then opening the center armrest, we have a pretty large deep storage area. No connectivity in here, but that's okay. It is softly dampened at the bottom. Then coming over to the glove box, it's made of hard touch plastic. It's not dampened, and I would have liked if this had a lock on it just for extra security. I actually forgot to point that out on the last Honda Pilot that I tested, and this is no different. Coming back up, we have a control for our power tilt and sliding sunroof in this interior lighting module here, and this is available on every Tucson except the very base model and the N line, and my tester has it included with the convenience package. Now I believe if you go for the higher trims, Hyundai actually gives us an even larger sunroof that extends to the back row. So overall, I'm really impressed with the amount of comfort and features that you get as the driver, but because this vehicle is meant to be a family hauler, let's see if the second row is just as comfortable. Now starting off at the rear door panel, we get the same exact materials that we had in the front row. As for the storage, we just have this one cup holder, and it's quite small for storage. I think Hyundai could have made this a little bigger. Then taking a look at their back seats, they are manually adjusting, and they do recline pretty far back. Now getting into the second row, the first thing I noticed is just how much legroom there is back here compared to the last generation. And now closing the rear door is also very solid. So far I'm not noticing a decline in quality, which is very impressive. This is where some competitors usually start to lose. They skip out on some features and materials, and I'm happy to report that's not really the case with the all-new Tucson. Now remember, Hyundai extended this vehicle by about 6 inches in length, and it definitely does make a difference when sitting in the second row. Now this vehicle now has 41.3 inches of leg room back here compared to 38.2 of the previous generation, and while that may not sound like a significant increase in perspective, it definitely does make a difference. This is actually the largest backseat you'll find in the segment, as I haven't been able to find another vehicle with more legroom after tons of research. So if passenger volume is a big priority for you, this Tucson should absolutely be on the top of your list. Now in addition to being the class leader, Hyundai also made sure to throw in these backseat pockets. And then coming to the center console, we have 2 air vents. This whole console is hard touch plastic. Then coming down, we have 2 USB ports, which are available on every Tucson but the very base model. Then below that, we do have a pretty large hump. I think Hyundai could have made this a little bit shorter, so middle passengers are going to have to split their legs quite a bit, which is not fun. Alright, so that concludes my review on the 2022 Hyundai Tucson. And if you guys made it this far, thank you. I really appreciate you for sticking with me till the end. If you guys found this video helpful, please consider leaving me a like and subscribing to the channel. It will definitely help me out. And I certainly hope you guys found this video helpful. And if you have any questions, thoughts, or suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video.